you.
Good. I guess it is afternoon, isn't it? Good afternoon. As Andrew mentioned, Ari and I are going to talk about one of the most resilient systems that's ever been created, the internet. We're also going to talk about some threats to that resilience. But before diving into that, I'll give you a little bit of background on me. I am a managing partner at Union Square Ventures. We're a venture capital firm based in New York. We have been, over the last 8 years, investing in the applications layer of the web. So that's not the switches and routers and infrastructure. It's the services that ride on top. And we found, in doing that work, that what had been a completely apolitical field, venture capital, has all of a sudden become somewhat political. Perhaps that's best illustrated by the fact that almost every single one of our services like Tumblr, Twitter, Kickstarter, Etsy, Foursquare, are banned in China. So there's something about them that is inherently political. And I want to try and explore that for a few minutes now. Over the last 150 years, the primary way to organize economic activity has been through a bureaucratic hierarchy. The model existed before then. It's the way we organized the army. It's the way we organized the church. But in about the middle of the 19th century, we began to create mass production for mass consumption. And organizing that economic activity was done through a bureaucratic hierarchy. Today, we have a new model. And it's only emerged over the last 20 years or so. But it's fundamentally different than the model that came before it. It's the model of network activity. So within that model, you can have a creator and a consumer collaborating together to create economic value. And to illustrate how different that is, think about some of these network-oriented businesses. Now, Wikipedia is not the Encyclopedia Britannica. If you think about the way the Encyclopedia Britannica created value, they paid people to generate articles, and they packaged it and turned around and sold it to people. Right? Wikipedia, the people who generate the articles and the people who consume the articles operate on the same network. If you think about each of these others, Twitter for news or Airbnb and the hotel industry, they're bringing a network model to what had been organized as a bureaucratic hierarchy. That's great. This model has been absolutely tremendous for a whole lot of reasons. It has reduced the cost of starting a new business. Foursquare, for instance, was able to get to 100,000 users with only $25,000. It's also expanded the reach of these services. Wikipedia is global. It reaches people in not hundreds, but many, many, many languages. And it makes knowledge more accessible. It democratizes the access to opportunity in ways that was never possible before. So these are wonderful things. It also does something even more remarkable. It allows for a kind of emergent, decentralized, bottoms-up, organic innovation that was not possible in the earlier model. So each of these systems evolves, and it evolves in a way that allows for it to be adaptive and resilient. All of this is fantastic, but all of this is under threat. Let me tell you why. There are the big problem is that these new network models and the fabulous efficiency of these new network models threatens the incumbents. It's very, very difficult for an incumbent bureaucratic hierarchy to reinvent itself as a network. It would require them to fundamentally change their business practices, their economic model, their organizational structure, their finances. It's really, really hard. And so they find themselves trying to compete with a model that is fundamentally threatening. And what they're doing is they're working with policymakers in jurisdictions around the globe to kind of slow the threat from these network economics. And they do that in ways that, if it wasn't really so threatening, would be comical. For instance, the over-enforcement of copyright has led to things like the National Democratic Convention being taken down off of YouTube because a piece of music that had been cleared through all the rights organizations was used in their opening, but the Autobots on YouTube took it down. There are examples where librarians who see this opportunity for making knowledge accessible globally are challenged by the fact that there are orphan works that nobody claims, but they can't digitize. There are examples of other networks like transportation networks. There's a company called Uber that has been bringing together people who need a ride with people who have a car and a need for providing a ride, limousine services and taxis. And it's been a great service in San Francisco where it launched and in Washington, D.C., but it threatens the economic model of the existing taxi and limousine services, and they are challenging this model through the taxi and limousine services in each of these markets. I'm not going to actually go through all of these. There's there's a peer-to-peer lending service in Brazil that's being outlawed by the financial regulators, and there's the great one here. As of yesterday, online free education is illegal in Minnesota. So there's a bunch of ways that we can approach this. One way to approach it is to try and solve this problem of the relationship between the incumbent bureaucratic hierarchies and the incumbent policymakers. The problem is that there's a revolving door between the two. There are a number of people that are trying to shed light on the way lobbying works. That's a good initiative. There's another approach, which is to solve campaign finance, another good initiative. But these are long slogs. And in order to approach this problem differently, we have rethought it. And we've said, well, what if there were some place, one jurisdiction on the planet that had a policy framework that was really conducive to innovation? What would happen then? Would it create a global conversation about what it meant to be conducive to innovation, free to innovate? Would it begin to attract investment and data and services and ultimately people? And would that force other jurisdictions to come out and compete? This is a model that we've seen before. Our founding fathers believed in the idea of diversity. Therefore, they created a decentralized states-driven model. We've seen it in charter schools. We've seen it in charter cities. What I want to do now is turn it over to Ari, who can talk about what it would mean to do something like this in Iceland.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thrilled to be here. Why are we looking at Iceland in this context? As many of you know, Iceland is an island in the middle of the Northern Atlantic Ocean, but there's a number of things that make it unique in this respect. One of them I would like to point out is the geographical location between Europe and the United States. But another one is that it is independent in many ways from the large entities, the United States and European Union, as Iceland is not a member of either of these. But I also want to bring to your attention some of the recent history of Iceland. Some of you may be familiar with some of the things we have gotten to be world famous for in recent years. One of them is a bank crash, par excellence, and one of them is an air traffic interrupting volcano, par excellence. But some of the things that have been happening following the economic downturn due to the banking crash are actually very interesting in this context. And that's what I want to tell you about here. The political environment in Iceland has changed dramatically due to the events that took place in 2008. And I want to point out one thing that is happening right now. Tomorrow, all voters in Iceland are invited to a national referendum on a new constitution. That is how fundamentally willing we are to go and look at the rules and see what rules we want to have for the future. And not only is this a new constitution, draft of a new constitution that we're talking about, it's a draft of a constitution that was generated through participation of the individuals in society. Individuals participate in town hall meetings, through the web, participating with a group that was elected by the population in order to work through the draft of the Constitution. It's a new way of approaching things, but what really matters is that we have a political environment that is unique today. It's willing to look at the rules that govern businesses, individuals, the freedom, the opportunity for innovation, and so forth. It's actually interesting also that we have a legal environment that is unique in many ways. We are a well-developed, high domestic product, modern democracy. But we've fundamentally been building our value on natural resources. We have green energy, natural resources from geothermal and hydroelectric, and we have fisheries. One of the things that this means is that only recently has Iceland started developing industry based on information technology. And that also means that there is not a lot of regulation in the way in terms of information technology. Finally, it's an economic environment ripe for advancing. We have green energy for data centers and for companies. We have well-educated workforce. We have a good technical infrastructure and a good connection to both sides of the Atlantic. So what are we doing? This is a project that is getting started right now. We're bringing together the partners, the stakeholders that are needed at the table, the universities, the industries, for example, through the Chamber of Commerce, as well as members from all parties in Parliament. And we're going to bring them together through an institution called the Internet Policy Institute. That's going to be the facilitator and the driver for the actual change. And what are we going to be doing in the next few months? We're actually going to be doing something very interesting and dramatic. We're going to be looking at all of the regulations that have to do with the information technology, the opportunity to innovate, and the rights of the individual. Everything from intellectual property through cybersecurity and barriers to entry into the economy. And we're going to be looking at how can we shape a framework that will actually do what we're talking about here, provide a location that fosters innovation and allows us to develop all of these wonderful things further. So back to you, Brad.
Thank you. So why does this matter? It matters because we believe that what happens in Iceland doesn't necessarily stay in Iceland. We believe that it's possible to start a global conversation there, and we believe that it's one of a number of tools that are critically important to solving these, to ensuring that the internet and the network economy that's created on the internet has an opportunity to solve some of these really, really difficult problems. If we assume that we have to live with the existing model of economic value creation, we are not going to be able to address all of the concerns that you see listed here. We need these network economics to attack these problems. Thank you very much for having us here. We are going to have a session later today where we'll go into some much greater detail on what it means to be a jurisdiction in cyberspace. Nobody has really completely defined that. There's a lot of discussion about that. We'll talk more about the policy frameworks that we think would be conducive to innovation, and we'll talk more about why Iceland is the place to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.